Okay, we'll call the Shakopee City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Delaney. Here. Councilmember Whitening.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Councilmember Lara.
Here.
And Mayor Lehman.
Here. Item number 3, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, we have a couple of items. First of all, 5H, you have a corrected title on resolution number 2025-053 in front of you. And we'll be pulling 5N, the fence ordinance, until the first meeting in June. And that will come back to you then.
Okay, that's... Any changes from council? Mr. Delaney?
I'd like to pull 5M.
That'll come under the consent agenda.
Consent, sorry.
Okay, Mr. Lara?
A motion to approve the agenda as modified.
Second. Mr. Whiting, seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Did you have something, Counselor?
Nope, I was going to second.
Item number 5, consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda?
Nothing from staff, sir.
I'd like to pull 5M, creating a hotel licensing program, just for discussion.
Mr. Whiting?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Whiting, seconded by Counselor Contreras. Mr. Reynolds, would you please read the consent agenda, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for Tuesday, May 6th of 2025. 5A awards a contract for Phase 2 of the downtown ADA lighting and tree rehab improvement project. 5B is Scott County's Public Health Statewide Health Improvement Partnership Grant Award. 5C awards a contract for the 2025 Stagecoach Road Improvement Project, approves extended Saturday construction hours, accepts a proposal from WSB for construction services, and approves a railroad agreement. 5D is a resolution to approve Dakota County joining the Minnesota Valley Transit Authority Board. 5E is a temporary liquor license for the Shakopee Lions Club and Foundation. 5F is a special event permit and temporary liquor license for JCI Shakopee. 5G is the Shakopee Soccer Association donation. 5H is a JCI Shakopee donation. 5I establishes a social district. 5J is a declaration of surplus fire department property. 5K is ordinance 02025 TAC, 02025 TAC 012 regulating grease traps and enforcement. 5L is ordinance adopting the plumbing code regulations for delegation. 5O approves the City Council meeting minutes for April 15th of 2025. 5P is ordinance 02025 TAC 014 allowing on-sale wine licenses and on-sale malt liquor licenses for baseball teams. 5Q is ordinance 02025 TAC 015 amending the city's adopted 2025 fee schedule. 5R is change order number 1 for Quarry Lake Park Shelter. 5S approve plans and authorizes bidding for the Marystown Road Reconstruction Project and approves a contract amendment with SRF. 5T is a renewal of a lease with MnDOT for the dog park in Southbridge. 5U approves a contract amendment with SRF for professional services for the County Road 101 Shenandoah Drive Traffic Signal Improvement Project. 5V approves the 2025-26 liquor license renewals. And 5W declares scuba diving equipment as surplus and approves its sale to the Carver County Dive Team.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any questions on the motion? Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. takes us to item number 6, public comment. If you are here for an item that is not on the agenda and would like to speak to council, now would be your time to do so. Please. Welcome. You can give us your name and address for the record, that would be awesome. Go ahead and pull it toward you, it slides on that table. Thank you.
Really, got it really close, really close.
Is it on?
On.
To plug it in the floor or something. Nope. If we can't get that, can we have her at the podium over here with that microphone? Sorry for the inconvenience. Oh, that was not on either. Technology is going to make us more efficient.
AI.
We'll get it.
All right, try it now.
Try that one, no.
No.
So, well, at least this one's working.
Again, sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Next year's budget.
All right, no worries.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so I'm Victoria Ranua, R-A-N-U-A, and I live at 5284 Eagle Creek Boulevard, and this area is zoned rural residential. And I'm here tonight to respectfully request that you guys reconsider the removal of agricultural as an allowed land use. This was removed in 2020 when you guys made some changes to your allowed land uses. I purchased my property in 2021. In part because it was rural residential and agriculture was an allowed land use. Since I was in kindergarten, you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I said I want to be a beekeeper and have an apple orchard. First thing I did was get bees. I have a 1/4 acre orchard, and I've been involved in agriculture operations within the county, helping other people establish farms. And in 2015, I started my own 300 hive beekeeping operation with 20 hives on the property, harvesting all my honey on the land. And then in 2017, my husband got sick, and I sold the bees but kept the equipment. And then when I'm ready to kind of start things up again, I find that the zoning has changed. And I thought, well, like I knew about the residential beekeeping thing, but I didn't think it applied to me because I thought agriculture was an allowed land use. So I just respectfully request you reconsider that. If there's a reason why it was removed, or if I think it might have been an oversight, but if there was a reason why it was removed, consider addressing those concerns in as a conditional use permit instead. So it just is a fantastic opportunity to provide food. Those rural residential, you're not making any more rural residential properties, they're stuck. This is a great opportunity to provide good, wholesome food to the community. So please reconsider that land use.
Can I get the address one more time?
Yeah, 5284 Eagle Creek Boulevard. And then while my husband was sick, I got a weekly box of vegetables from a rural residential property on Marshall Road. So not too many people are going to take up this call of agriculture on rural properties, but some will. And thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming and talking tonight. Any clarifying questions from council? Okay. The way the policy works is we take the information, staff takes the information, and they'll do some research, and they will tell us what they find, and we'll ask questions that we have of them.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Mr. Whiting?
Can staff mention when that ordinance was changed, or that zoning was changed, that language?
They're going to have to research it.
Well, I'll have to research if they can remember that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know, have any idea?
Yeah, I have to speak into the mic. We can't hear. Thank you.
Yeah, do you have any idea when that zoning was changed.
2020, if you remember, we, mayor and council, we moved everything to a table format, and just looking at it, I think it was a Scrivener's error, because you can have a roadside stand, but you can't grow things. So I think that was just an error when they transferred the table over into the code. So I will look tomorrow, because I noticed note 46 allows a roadside stand with conditions, so you have to be able to grow things to be able to sell things. So I'll look tomorrow, but I have a feeling it just got dropped out of the table.
Scrivener.
And Mr. Reynolds, if staff could just go ahead and shoot us all an email on
Yes,
what
sir.
they find. Thank you. Anything else?
And hopefully keep in contact with Ms.
Right.
Renya? Sorry, I pronounced it.
Thank you.
Did you get the contact information, Mr. Kursky?
Mayor, I know her very well.
Okay, very good.
That's a yes, correct? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council on an item not on the agenda? Item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to item number 7, business removed from the consent agenda. 5M was removed by Councilor Delaney. Mr. Delaney.
Correct. This is just more of clarification for me, this concerning on wording on page 6 of the ordinance, or I guess 110 of our packet. Item 10, no interested person, employee, manager, or contractor performing services of any kind may reside in a guest room at the hotel. How does that apply? I mean, we don't have it yet, but there are like Wisconsin Dells, where you have those resorts where you get college kids over the summer. How's that handled?
Mayor and council, that clause is put in there so that you're not living in the hotel as the owner.
Oh, okay. Got it. Just need that clarification.
Yep.
Number 11, that's my other one. No guest shall be able to establish permanent residence. I'm just looking for the definition of permanent residence.
So it's staying for more than 30 days. So we have a couple hotels in town where people are basically using it as an apartment. If you remember the individual who was involved in a murder a few years ago, he was actually living as his residence in one of the hotels in town.
So how would that apply to like an extended stay? Again, we don't have them yet, but
Extended stay?
days.
So extended stay is defined in the code as less than 30 days. So extended stay means you're saying for a couple of weeks. Once you hit that month, it's an apartment. You're no longer paying the lodging tax. It's no longer a hotel room.
Okay.
So technically, I suppose I could check out, go somewhere else for a day or two, and then come back and check
Okay.
in.
Oh, I'm sure there's always loopholes.
Is that how,
Always loopholes in the law, right?
yeah. I mean, is that how extended stay handles it now, or? as far
Well, I
as-
don't think people go for more than, 2 or 3 weeks on an extended stay business type adventure.
So Mayor and Council, the one that's next to McDonald's, there's an extended stay there. They have contractors typically that come from out of town. They'll stay there Monday through Friday. They go home on the weekend and then they come back on Mondays. So they're only staying there while they're working here. It's not their place of
5
residence.
days.
No.
So that explains, okay,
Business won't pay for the weekend.
got it. And
I guess I've got a question or two. Do you have more?
just my last one, I promise here. On the next page, number 7, page 7, number C, as far as inspection hours, just making sure the rooms are unoccupied and we're not,
What page are you on?
page 111 of the packet, page 7 of the ordinance.
So Mayor and Council, is very similar to our rental ordinance. So typically, we do not enter an apartment, or we would not rent our unit unless the person's okay with it, or the police or fire department would enter a unit if there's someone ill or someone has passed away. So
Emergency or something.
we've had hotel units where the occupant has been deceased, so that's the only time that we would enter.
Thank you.
So I guess the question I had, page 110, item 10, no interested person, employee, manager, or contractor performing services of any kind may reside in a guest room at the hotel. So if you hire a contractor to, I don't know, put carpeting in or something, and it's going to take a couple days, they can't, as an individual, rent out a room for the night to finish the work tomorrow?
Mayor and Council, I'll defer to the city attorney since he wrote most of this.
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at that. I'm sorry, but one more time, could you ask your question?
A minute.
So on page 110 of the packet, item number 10, No interested person, employee, manager, or contractor performing services of any kind may reside in a guest room at the hotel. So if you got a specialist for a boiler or something coming out of Chicago to fix something, and it's going to take 2 days, he can't stay overnight there. Granted, he would have to rent a room or whatever like the normal general public.
That's a good question. I wanted to go back and look at the definition of interested person, and it does not include those types of, contractors. We can certainly take a look at that and change that. I get the point,
And I'm also
it's a good
concerned about, in the same exact wording on that same item, an owner of the property not being allowed to stay on his own property.
Reside, I think.
Well, he can rent a room if he's the undercover boss, right?
You could, Mayor and Council, I think that is concerning, so having the actual owner of the property basically has an apartment that's a rental unit. It's no longer a hotel room, and there's different codes that apply to that.
Well, this is saying guest room, so the owner of the property can't do a surprise visit and check in as a guest for a night in his own hotel. Is that what you're telling me?
No, Mayor and Council, I'm saying you can't live there. So the whole idea behind, I believe, and the city attorney can correct me, is this is to keep
It says reside.
Okay,
your
so,
employees from living on the property.
so the word reside should be permanent residency.
Or resident, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Yes, the purpose of this is not to let them live there, okay? That doesn't mean they couldn't rent a room there. So to keep the language consistent, we should probably say may be a permanent resident in a guest room. That
Okay.
would be consistent with the
Or
rest
use
of
the term extended stay.
No, because extended stays are allowed up to 30 days.
Okay,
Then it becomes a permanent resident.
I'll defer to the attorney then.
I-
Do you
I-
want, can we do that as a text amendment here tonight?
Yes.
And if I may, I'll read what it would, if everyone agrees, no interested person, employee, manager, or contractor performing services of any kind may permanently reside in a guest room at the hotel.
I think that covers it, yeah.
That's fine.
We can add that one word, and that should take care of it.
And I'm assuming if it's the same thing as worded anywhere else in this resolution, we would have to make that change too consistent. I don't know if I haven't read it through that deep.
Maybe by the end of,
I mean,
we can
Mr.
put this on the back page.
Mr. Thompson?
Give me one. I'm just doing a quick word search here to see if it does show up anywhere else. And
Smart.
that looks like it's the only time where the word reside is in the ordinance. The rest of it all is residency, so it should be the only change we need to make.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any other questions on this?
That's all mine, thank you.
Mr. Lara, no? What's the wishes of council, Mr. Lara?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 02025-013 as modified.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Delaney, discussion on the motion? Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8 would be a recess for Economic Development Authority meeting. Mr. Councilor Contreras.
I'll make a motion to recess to the EDA.
Is there a second? Mr.
Second.
Delaney seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in recess for the EDA.
All right, welcome. Call to order the Tuesday, May 6th, meeting of the Shakopee Economic Development Authority meeting. Please make note of the roll. We're not going for any records tonight, but we could with this agenda. So if there's anything anybody would like to pull, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Member Lara,
Second.
second by Member Contreras. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda, there's nothing. I don't even think we need to move that. General business, we have nothing. We have item number 5 the EDA bill lists. Does anybody have anything they'd like to pull? Any questions?
None for me.
All right, with that, if there is, we can move to adjourn if there's no dissent. All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to,
Yeah, good one.
The next time. Where are
which would probably be the first meeting in June 5th, no, June 3rd,
June 3rd?
2025.
we? Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion that's seconded to adjourn. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
President, was it a record?
No, we were not rushing things.
It was not a record.
All right. Item 10A, monthly financial report. Finance Director. Mr. Reinhardt, the floor is all yours when you're ready, sir.
That EDA meeting was so quick, I wasn't quite ready for this.
Take my time.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'll go through the monthly financial report through March, which would also include the first quarter investment report. I just wanted to provide a quick update on the audit. So we have completed our audit fieldwork for 2024. That presentation will be completed by the auditors at the June 3rd City Council meeting. But pleased to announce that we'll receive a clean audit opinion, and there were no audit findings or comments, so another solid year from a financial perspective.
Good work.
So this slide shows the general fund through March, so 25% of the way through the year. Still pretty early in the year, so one or two large transactions can often kind of skew the results of this report. For revenues, property taxes, and special assessments, those will remain at zero until we collect our first half tax settlement in June. Licenses and permits, tracking ahead of budget targets for this year, as well as a little bit ahead of last year. So we're continuing to see growth in building permits so far in 2025. Miscellaneous would typically include investment earnings, but we have yet to allocate interest for 2025. Typically, we'll wait till after the audit so we can ensure we have accurate starting cash balances when we do those interest allocations. So those will appear in the next monthly report. On the expenditure side, we're within the budget target in total. I'd consider each department budget at this point in time reasonably in line with budget expectations through this point of the year. Mayor and council are showing ahead of budget targets. This is mostly a result of timing. Annual dues are paid at the beginning of the year, so as the year progresses, we'll likely see that department come within budget targets by the end of the year. Just a couple slides on the investment report. You did receive the full report with your packet. This slide shows interest earnings for the first quarter in comparison to the previous 4 years. That dark green line is 2025. We're at about $700,000 through the first quarter, so slightly up, but comparable to where we were last year through March. My expectation would be that we'd end up similar to last year with interest earnings at the end of the year. I did add one slide here just to show our interest return in comparison to the 3-year Treasury yield, which is the benchmark that we use in our investment report. Our maturity average is about 2.5 years, so a little less than that 3-year benchmark. The blue line on the slide being that benchmark and the city being the orange line. We've stayed fully invested, meaning that we invest everything we can above what we need for operations. Generally, this means more predictability in interest income and better returns over a longer period of time, because typically with investments, the longer the maturity, the higher the return will be. Again, the orange line on the chart is our investments return. I just wanted to show that typically we lag behind the interest rate changes. So in the instance where current market rates increase, it sometimes takes a little time to catch up, as you can see in the 2022 year. But in instances where current market rates decrease, we'll have a period of time where we're outperforming, as you can see in 2020 and 2021. I think we're in good position with our current portfolio now, so if interest rates were to come down, I don't believe we'd see an immediate impact on what we might expect for interest earnings in this year and the next year. And then this slide here just shows the unrealized gain or loss for 2025. Again, it's the green line. otherwise known as the market value adjustments for the investments. Last couple of years, we had a pretty significant adjustment for unrealized gains as interest rates kind of stayed flat or actually shifted down in the past year. So far in 2025, rates are down in comparison to December of 24. So we currently have an unrealized gain of $670,000. We do intend to hold all our investments to maturity, so that unrealized gain loss is only recorded once a year on December 31st. Market still is indicating rates likely will come down at the end of the year, but I guess you never know with where things have been going. If we were to see that happen, we'd have another unrealized gain for 2025, similar to what we saw last year. With that, I can stand for any questions that you might have.
Questions? Mr. Lara?
I just have a comment. Congratulations on your zero findings on your audit.
Yeah, I'm actually looking very forward to their presentation in June. It's always nice to not have anything come up during the audit.
It's good. Good stuff. That's it for me.
Anything on this side? Sir? Item 10B will be the police annual report presentation by the police chief, Mr. Tate.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Back tonight for another annual report presentation. And I think the theme is going to sound a little bit like a broken record from years past. We see a couple of different themes throughout these slides. This is one of those positive themes that we see is the trend is still going down. Our overall crime rate in Shakopee hit a record low last year. I know that doesn't, some folks might not feel that or they might not believe that, but this is what the numbers are. We remain a very, very safe community, and we're real proud of that trend. Our top, some of our top reported crimes, you can see they're going down again, overall an 8.1% decrease in crime from the year before. I will tell you that our first quarter of 2025 here, we are seeing an uptick in certain things, our arrests, our DUIs. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I think we're fully staffed. We have our DUI officer that's grant funded, that's back. He missed a good portion of last year. We'll see that reflected a little bit in the DUI numbers. He was on light duty. And we have a younger force, a less experienced force, tend to do a lot more traffic enforcement, stopping, catching people with warrants. And our proactive policing unit has been up and running, fully staffed here now for several months. So you see that a little bit reflected in the data from last year, and you will see that again. I also think it's important when you get your monthly reports, when you see that things are up, to remember historically where we're at. Even if we go up a little bit, historically, we are still at a very, very good crime rate overall. Where we like to see the arrow go up is this one right here, the case clearance rate going up. It's always our goal, it has been for several decades, to be above the metro average in our case clearance rate. Those 45% there are above the average. 55 is well above the average. That tells us, what are we doing when we actually get a reported crime? Are we solving it? Is there an arrest made? Is that case cleared? So again, I think with our DUI car, our proactive policing unit, we're going to see a lot, this case clearance rate remain high. I also think it's important with this slide too. Our officers, I talk about that proactive policing unit that is a priority in our police department. It is nice to see some of the things that we hear back from the people that we do deal with. We had an officer, our proactive unit, first and foremost, a lot of times they got their own little sheet that they keep when they have a phone that they'll dump on a case where people are texting each other back and forth. Don't go to Shakopee. If you're going to Shakopee, make sure your headlights are on and you're driving the speed limit. We have an officer just the other day, she shared that she had somebody in the back of her car for a theft. That individual said, and I quote, "Everyone said not to come to Shakopee." Last week, our drug task force had over an ounce of meth that they had a control buy set up on here in town. The individual called and said, "I'll do it in Bloomington. I'm not doing it in Shakopee. It's too hot there." That's the kind of reputation I love. It's not, you know, it is one that I think we've earned. We've stayed very aggressive throughout the 2000s. You saw that graph going down. I know that you hear a lot in the media. Minneapolis has said it. You know, crime's gone down last year everywhere, and it has. But if you look at that 2019, 2020, and that graph, it's been consistently going down, and not every city can say that.
Chief, what's the metro average clearance rate?
We won't get it for, Mayor, we will not get it for 2024 until probably mid to late June. It's usually that 43, 44% is where we've historically had it. We've published that in our reports in the past.
Right.
We get it very, very late in the year.
Okay.
Again, kind of that broken record theme, there's not a whole lot different here than what you saw last year. Our calls for service, 22,661. I don't have code enforcement on there, but they saw a slight uptick in terms of the code complaints that they dealt with.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions. You mentioned code enforcement. Now, that's just the one officer. Police officers are not doing any code enforcement?
Mayor, council, our goal is with that code enforcement officer and with a CSO that they handle the overwhelming majority of that. An officer may take an initial complaint, especially if it's at night, if it's after hours when those two positions aren't working. But these are calls that require follow-up, whether it's 7 days later to make sure there's compliance, 10 days later, those types of things. So that's our clearinghouse, are those two individuals.
So a little follow-up to that. When we got our code enforcement, we were moving to more of a proactive approach on code enforcement. Do you still see us as a proactive code enforcement city?
Mayor, council, part of what the struggle is with code enforcement, I think our code book has something like 900 different codes. So when you hire a CSO to start training them in, and then as we just swore in another one last week, it's hard to get somebody. I think that consistency helps. That's why we got the full-time code compliance officer that we have. I always want to be a little more proactive, but again, you're going to see again, this next week or two, we're going to start getting the long grass complaints. We're going to start getting weed complaints. You get a drought summer like we've had in the last few summers, those complaints go down. So sometimes it's weather related. We haven't been systematically going through town necessarily the way that I would like. It really is a lot of complaint driven that we're going to. Now, when we go to a call and we see something at one house, if there's somebody down the block, the expectation is that they've got their tires out outside too. The expectation is that we're going to make sure everybody on that block is in compliance.
You can understand that's probably one of our makes our phone ring the most, I guess, is code enforcement. Now, the other thing I was hoping you could explain is the Lewis Street Bridge and why we have 169 so that anybody watching can understand what that means.
Sure. First and foremost, 169 and Lewis Street Bridge, a lot of crashes are part of that.
Okay.
Also, you look at the Highway 169 numbers, I think it's close to 80% of those are traffic stops or traffic-related calls. Somebody's drunk, impaired driver, road rage. We are in the middle of a grant right now, too, where we have extra enforcement due to the crash rates on 169. I know the study is coming, and I'm excited to see what that shows. But right now, because of the crashes, Lewis Street Bridge, again, we get a lot of complaints in the mornings in particular, people making illegal right turns on Lewis Street because they don't want to sit in the backup, so they'll go to the light and make the right turn to go north. We do have officers that sit out there in the morning and watch that bridge as well. Anytime you have a bridge, whether it's 169 or Lewis Street, when you get inclement weather, it's slippery. That's part of it. And also, it could be a stop that they do on 101, but if they're by the Lewis Street Bridge, they say 101 Lewis Street Bridge. That
Triggers.
pops up on there. This includes all your on-ramps, off-ramps to 169, which is a big stretch that has thousands and thousands of cars. So I'm not, every day that go through there. So I'm not surprised by the numbers. I think our enforcement efforts, again, we see people, the speed numbers that our officers are getting out there are high. So it is important that we're out there. And I'm looking forward to see what happens from an engineering standpoint when this study is complete.
Thank you.
I'm glad that MnDOT worked with us on dollars for that safety study, and I've been banging that drum for a while now, and that is a really high call load, and it's not just police, it's fire also.
Mayor and council, I will add too that this grant, that extra enforcement grant is ending here in 2025. So again, you'll see it's getting worked a lot now. You're going to see the traffic numbers up, the warrant arrests up, because we are out there. This doesn't impact our minimums on our patrol staff, who's patrolling the city when they're out there. But that does end here shortly, that grant. Larceny, vandalism, and DUI, again, in the top three. And I'll get into some of the arrests here in a little bit. Citations, again, I talked about some of the extra enforcement grants. There's the TZD grant too that we do for impaired driving. Roughly, I think 9,500 stops a year in 2024, close to that when you add everything up. When you look at who's actually getting a moving violation ticket from one of our officers, they're giving a moving violation ticket, take the snowbirds out, 30% of our stops. So 70% of the time our officers are out there, and the purpose is to educate. That is our priority, to make our roads safer. It's not to go see how many tickets we can write. I will point out, I think the last 2 years here, we've got 2 officers just by themselves have done more traffic stops just by those 2 officers than some whole departments have done in Scott County.
Councilor Lara?
What's a snowbird citation?
Oh, the snowbird citation would be somebody who's our winter parking ordinance. So the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Or no street parking.
Calendar, yeah.
And then I have another one real quick, going back to that last slide. Number 4, Ivana Addison, is that just because it's the sheer size of the,
It's a lot of apartments.
is it because it's our largest apartments?
Mayor, council, we kind of scrubbed through these pretty good, and it is, again, size-wise, just the volume, you're going to see some of those.
Sure.
I've always said, like, any city that has a Walmart in it is going to have it in their top places. Anybody that has an ER is going to have it in their top.
And I will point out that if you look at the history going back a few years on apartment being in the top call, I'm not necessarily saying it's management in this particular case, but in many cases, it's management, and as that management issue gets addressed, you see them calls go down, and then maybe you see it at a different location.
Mm-hmm.
Arrests in response to resistance. I know I've covered this before. I'll just do it real quick. We do not call it a use of force report because you don't have to use force to generate this report. It's an internal document that we have that we require officers to fill out anytime they use anything beyond an escort hold. So even just if you had to pin somebody up against the car and restrain somebody to get them handcuffed, that generates this report. It goes to a supervisor, a sergeant who reviews the body camera footage and signs off on it, sends it to a captain who does the same, and then they send it off to me who does the same. So it's a pretty strict process that we have. It's one that has been pushed out there as a best practices by Benchmark Analytics, that review. We are constantly collecting a lot of data in our response to resistance reports. So what does that data tell us? First of all, remember we had 22,600 some calls in 2024. You look at the 104 reports there, that's 0.004% of the time in any call for service generates a response to resistance report. When you look at that and you look at 23 and 24, oh my goodness, we've got 30 extra reports. What's happening? Arrests were, I think, down slightly, but yet we have all these. Remember the mental health aspect of this? That is a big, big portion of that 104. A lot of times that's somebody in mental health crisis that we have to assist the paramedics in holding down as they transport in an ambulance. 30% of that 104 are people in mental health crisis. That is data that we extrapolate from our folks. 7.3% of all arrests we make require this report. If you look at just over the 1,400 arrests, 104 require a report. 70% of the time, our officers are just restraining someone, okay? So about 30 times in the entire year in 2024 did our officers have to use force, and that included using a taser one time. We used the taser and deployed it one time last year. So of all our arrests, we're looking at 0.2% of the time we're actually using physical force. The overwhelming majority of those force incidents, we're taking someone to the ground. 50% of the people we deal with in that 104 were under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and as I mentioned, 30% in a mental health crisis situation. I don't see that changing, unfortunately. I think, we've seen it in some of the things that get sent either to council or certainly the calls that we're on. The mental health crisis piece that we've had is not going away. Our coordinated response unit has done a fantastic job at lowering a lot of call loads. I cite an example often where we were one year, I think in 23, we were at this house 84 times. And in 23, we were at it 84 times. Last year, we were at it 4. All due to that coordinated response program. So that is helping immensely in that. I mentioned again the DWI arrests. We're down just a slight tick. I think that's going to be a much higher number in 2025. Again, full-time DUI car. That is a grant-funded car. His salary, his overtime, his training, everything is reimbursed by this grant. It's something we apply for every October. Confident we'll get it. Most departments that have had it in the past, a lot of them just due to staffing issues can't have that. So our competition for the grant isn't immense, but also our numbers and what our person is producing warrants them to keep funding it. So we're quite confident that program will keep going. The broken record theme again, 251. I've said this over and over for years. I look forward to the year we don't have to do it, but our average blood alcohol level of someone we arrest on a DUI is twice the legal limit, just over twice the legal limit. So we still, despite all the free rides, everything that we have, we're still seeing the people that we do get are very, very intoxicated. Of the 251, 40 of those were drug arrests for impairment.
I have a question.
Mr. Lara.
I'm curious if it's possible to ever see statistics on DUI arrests in Shakopee, like who's a resident and who's not, because since we are a destination city, I'm wondering how many of those are people that don't live here versus people that, because since we do have all those ride programs and such, I'm just curious to see what the numbers would look like casually.
Sure. Mayor and council, just real quick anecdotally, I look at every one of them every day. The overwhelming majority are not from here. Overall, close to 2/3 of everybody that we arrest and book in the Scott County Jail is not from here.
I believe we collect that data, but maybe not on the DWI arrests, but.
Not on the DUI arrests. It's something maybe we look at like a month or two here, and we can give that that to you, but most of the folks that I see, again, because I look at them, they're not from here.
But I think in fairness, if you take our population compared to the transit population going through, the transit population just on 169 is substantial.
And then before I leave this slide, I do want to, again, last week, MAD Minnesota announced we were their Law Enforcement Agency of the Year. That's the third time in the last maybe 15 years that we've received that award. I think we've got 7 or 8 awards, agency awards from that organization over the last few years. And a lot of it has to do with what we're doing proactively in the getting people designated driver program, which if you've looked, Savage is doing that this month. Our programs are being replicated throughout the state, and MAD Minnesota recognized that. Drug Task Force, again, you see their numbers going up a little bit. It's there's a couple of different things. I mean, the amounts for charging have changed over the years. They need higher amounts to get higher charges. They're fully staffed now, which is 8 agents and a commander. We, in 2025, have 1 agent in the Drug Task Force, and we also have one of our sergeants as the commander. That's always been very beneficial to us. I think that's going to be good for Shakopee. Whenever we've been driving the bus, I think we get a little more attention around here, and I know that the 2 individuals that we have are going to really push things and be proactive from the task force standpoint.
Chief, what's the number of investigations is up quite a bit, and then the prescription drug, substantial increase. What's up with that?
Some of it is mayor, council. Investigations can be a lot of things, just the different tips. The drug task force really kind of was a little bit of a roller coaster staffing wise in terms of who was there. Some agencies took a long time to fill somebody. When you do put a new agent in, there's a learning curve with that kind of work. But in any drug case, especially like pills, you get one good case and it's going to, you catch somebody at the right time with the right possession. You're going to get a lot of pills.
Well, I'm curious, is this somebody with prescription drugs that aren't their own?
Yes. A lot of them are probably pressed pills too, laced with fentanyl, those types of things.
Okay, well,
They get a lot of pressed pills.
But those aren't prescription.
There'll be some prescription, but a lot of them will be illegal pressed pills.
And we're classifying that as prescription because it looks like a prescription?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I saw a special on them pressed things on the news, and it's like, God, they can make them just pretty quick. It's pretty sad, actually.
Even with Ozempic now.
It's crazy.
And we do get reimbursed a certain amount for having an agent in there, and even more so for having a sergeant in there. So those funds from the grants for these task forces do come back to the city. So some future needs and trends. Just a very, very quick update from the flood last year, the state disaster relief request form. I did complete that and submit that. There's been some turnover at the state level, emergency management wise, so things are moving slow, but they are moving. We're moving towards getting a reimbursement. I can't say exactly how much. I think it's going to be a little over $20,000 that the city will get recouped for what happened last spring. We are in the future, we are in the process of moving towards a new dispatch system. The county is. That is their decision. They're moving. I think it's going to require a lot more work on our part. We've done some research into this specific program with our records management, LETG. We've got a lot of work to do. I've got a lot of concerns in terms of the workload that's going to be falling on our record staff and specifically our patrol staff. So we were with Prior Lake representatives today out at South Lake Minnetonka looking at their system, and the county's paying for it, but we have some concerns in terms of workload and safety that are going to fall on us. Cars, I'm just real briefly on this. Since COVID, cars have been a challenge. We put the order in early, say we need 4 squad cars, and there's a little bit of a crapshoot. Bill's staff does a great job at kind of getting that in early, seeing when we can, dropping the hammer when we can and we can get these vehicles in. But even some of the unmarks right now, it's very, very difficult to get squads. We're in competition. They're not turning them out like they used to, and that's going to continue. Training, this has been one of our calling cards, as you know, for 3 decades, how much we value training. It's our research and development for our staff, our professional development. Training needs are not going to go away. The mandates aren't going away, but if you've been listening, training reimbursement funds are going to be cut at some point. Both the House and the Senate have right now we get about $940 per officer if they're here for the entire year. I've seen anywhere from 70 to 20% cuts in that. So it could be a substantial cut in our training reimbursement. Hopefully we know in a month or so what that's going to be. Luckily, our tribal funds can offset that. It's still going to be a priority. Unfortunately, I think for some smaller, more rural police departments, they're going to be hurting. Animal control has been something I've been frustrated with, I think, for over a decade. We spend quite a bit on this. It's about $34,000 a year. Nobody's happy with the service that we're getting from it. Alternatives are few and none. We are not alone in this. I know Savage, Prior Lake, us, we've done a lot of talking at a county chief's level about what can we do animal control-wise. Certainly, we can get a lot of complaints real fast if animals aren't being treated right. This is something that we're probably looking at maybe having to do in-house with our code enforcement folks. We impound about 100 dogs a year. We can do it, but it'll probably mean a couple different things in space-wise in terms of kennels and those things. So that is coming. We're, again, moving towards an alternative there.
Councilor Contreras.
Thank you. Quick question for you. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's just a question. When are we up, or are officers up for vest? Because doing events with them, I've seen how a lot of officers wear outer vest with all their equipment outside. And I've noticed our officers wear the inner vest, right?
Right.
So it's just, is that?
Our officers, Mayor, Council, our officers can wear an external vest.
Okay.
They don't wear the load-bearing vests that have all the stuff here.
Stuff on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a decision I have articulated numerous times with our staff. I've got my reasons why I don't like the load-bearing vests. If they have a problem with the weight on their belt, we have suspenders, and we'll buy them the suspenders that you can hide inside. I got a lot of safety concerns, along with the look of them. Having all of these rounds and bullets and handcuffs and everything out there. I don't like the look of that.
Got it.
And there's studies out there that have put a lot of research into this. There's a lot of studies out there that show that's not a good look. It's not one that bodes well for us and the type of police officer we want to show.
Got it. Thank you.
But we're not compromising safety.
No.
I think, look, we've been wearing this uniform for years. I mean, we still have our vests. There's a federal and state grant that reimburses us for the vests. So every, 5 years, we get new ones. Okay. So we get fitted, and they can get an external carrier if they want. So when they come in, some do. They come in, it's a hot day, they can take it off and write their report, cool down, all of that stuff. But in terms of the load-bearing vests, again, I can talk all day about the cons of that. I think some people think it looks cool, but I got a lot of safety issues with those too.
Over the years, Chief, vests with technology, vests have gotten lighter, but still, capable or whatever?
Mayor, Council, they're still capable. I don't know how much lighter they were. When I started, we had these paper thin ones, and they failed some tests, and we had to go reissue everybody new vests, and we miss those old vests because they were real thin and light and cool. But again, I think a lot of the technology is the same. If the officer wants to wear an armor plate, they can. That adds obviously weight and bulk. Sure. But in terms of vests and equipment, they have the best that's out there in terms of a bulletproof ballistic vest.
Good. Questions on this side? Questions? Chief, I just got one last question. What is if you could, what would be the one thing that the residents of Shakopee could do that helps keep our crime rate down?
Mayor, thank you for asking me that. I forgot that on that slide when we talked about crime going up and down. And if every resident in Shakopee just locked their car.
Without the keys, right?
Without the keys in it, preferably not running. If every resident would bring their laptop in from their car, their purse, anything like that, that those crimes of opportunity, unlocked garages left open overnight, and unlocked vehicles represent a very significant portion of our thefts, which is our #1 reported crime, has been for decades, probably always will be. If they just do that, we'll hit another record next year. So that's why you see it in a lot of our communications too, the Lock It Shakopee campaigns that we've had over the years, emphasizing that. It is an opportunity thing, and residents do need to do their part to make sure that they don't have that stuff out there. So.
Well, and I was always under the assumption and worked with the police department many years, even before council, that, you know, if you're calling in a crime, the more good solid data that you can get safely to the police, the better chance they're going to be able to be more proactive and successful in that crime, following up. So, you know, you just don't say there's a car, you know, whipping donuts out in front. You got to need more information than that. You know, color, type, maybe a license plate.
Mayor and council, last slide. I want to hit on staffing just real quick. I even just last week read a 2-pager from a Metro department, pays very well, down over 7 cops, and they're going to lose 7 this year to retirements. And the theme of the letter was, you know, we're doing our best not to make everyone go to mandatory 12-hour shifts. That happens with a number of departments here. We are fully staffed. I do anticipate maybe losing one in July. We will still be fully staffed. I bring this up for a couple reasons. We've undergone a lot of transition in the last couple years. Hit a bit of a retirement cliff. There is, I mean, a recruitment war going on with everybody trying to fill their ranks with lateral hires and lots of incentives. We've done a really, really good job. I'm proud of our staff. They've worked hard recruiting. Our officers have worked hard recruiting. If you look at our hires the last couple of years, you see a nice mix of people just getting out of school and people that are coming from other agencies with experience, so that we don't 15 years from now have another retirement cliff where we're trying to fill all these gaps and holes. A lot of that credit comes to you folks for giving us the flexibility. When we see somebody that we like, that we need, we have to jump on them. Our CSO that we hired, as a patrol officer, I think we had our eyes on him this time last year and just kind of put the arms around him and weren't going to let him go because we knew he wouldn't last long out there. That flexibility is key. It's going to be key in the future to keep us selective in our hiring. Hiring for character is always our goal. I will share with you, and again, this is a big reason I wanted to bring up staffing. We just had some 360 feedback come through from everybody, from the department. We also get feedback in general from our checkup from the neck up. Those psychologists don't give anything specific, but general themes. Mayor, council, the last 2 years, but this year in particular, I would say 85 to 90%, no exaggeration, of the feedback that we get. Officers can write whatever they want. 85 to 90% of that talks about how good our culture is. find me another cop shop that has that. That really makes me, I've been doing cartwheels for a while with that, and we've been talking as a supervisory staff about how the feedback that we've had, that's what's going to help us to moving forward. There are over 1,500 law enforcement officers in the state of Minnesota that are retirement eligible in the next 2 years. Okay, we're not out of this yet. There's still, our folks are very attractive to other agencies in terms of state agencies and so forth. They're going to keep coming after. Our culture is what's going to keep us together and keep us coming through that, so we're not giving up our proactive unit, and we're also, again, we can have the ranks filled or don't impact our minimums and keep this train moving in the right direction. So thank you again for that flexibility. That everybody in our police department knows that and appreciates that. The amphitheater, I really do wish we would have had a little bit of a trial run this fall, just to kick the tires and see how it went and make any changes to our plans and approach in the off season, but we'll be after it this time next year. I will tell you, we have sent staff to other amphitheaters and talked to other staff from multiple amphitheaters that on how they do things. We had Valley Scare last year. We had to use Savage and Scott County to help supplement the number of officers that were there. We know we're not going to be able to do this alone. I think that was a good test run of how we're going to work with those other agencies in a contractual overtime consistent basis. I will tell you just the number of events. Valley Fair doesn't go away from April through the end of October. Just managing our contractual overtime is going to be a full-time job for somebody, and coordinating with all these other agencies. We joke about it, but there's probably some days, some Fridays in September, September, late August, where you might have a home football game, Valley Fair going on, and a concert. You might have 30 cops in this town just on contractual overtime. When I started, we weren't even close to 30 employees in the whole department. So
that's part of my question. You talked about the 360 reviews. Is there any concerns about how much overtime they're doing at these events? That's contracted. These events are paying for them, but is there concerns?
Mayor, Council, right now, as a department, our folks are excited for
We want
this
to see
come.
the concerts.
Yeah, but it is something, and I mentioned this in the article that was in the paper, and it's true. We're sitting there in interviews, and they're talking to us about the amphitheater, the people that are that we're interviewing. So it is a recruitment tool. The fee that's going to come with the tickets that we've been discussing is, I think, going to be vital in terms of how we work. Some of these other departments, the county will be different because they've got the Renaissance there for part of that. They weren't able to help out during some of the Valley Scare time. By that time throughout the year, our people are kind of almost Valley Faired out, to be honest, because they have us out there every single day. Other departments know this is coming. We've talked to them. I think they're excited for it. But it is going to be a lift.
Will the amphitheater have its own security detail like Valley Fair?
Mayor, Council, yes. Again, I think what excites me about this venue and how it's set up, it's not going to be a festival. It's not going to be an all-day thing where, I mean, everybody has a ticket for a specific seat. The way the security on the outside is going to process people as they're going in, I anticipate a very, very safe event. Our biggest lift will be the traffic. Yeah. And hoping a train doesn't come by.
That's right. Good luck.
Just do, always once. When you look again, you'll see it in our budget coming up. We'll have to add a lot for overtime for next year, but close to 70% of what we have right now is contractual overtime of our total overtime budget, which other than maybe Bloomington, not a lot of departments have that big of a percentage. And the last thing I want to talk about is our building. We moved in 2003, so 22, 23 years old here we're coming up on. We've done very little cosmetically or structurally to it. If anything, we've done some cosmetic things that you've probably seen over the last few months. But we are at capacity. We have, our open spaces are not open anymore. I think we've taken very good care of this building over the last 20-plus years. It's, we've got, from a storage standpoint, whether it's the bike room or the SWAT room, they're full. Our storage is full. We've got a back closet area in between the two interview rooms now that we've converted to a workspace. So we do need to look at the future here. And it's not just our, the police department building. At training room, take out the police department, our use of it, over 60, I think it was 60 different organizations throughout the community made over 202 reservations for that building in that room. It's our EOC. So we have to make sure that this thing's going to last 25 more years. It's not anything that I anticipate bringing to you for a 2026 budget, but I think hiring a consultant to at least look at the building. We have a very unique ceiling that comes down. Are we able to move up? Are we able to move out? Those types of things to make sure that, again, this building's going to meet our needs moving forward for the next 25 years. And I think doing it right is the right approach. I know Burnsville's on their second remodel in like 10 years. We don't want to do that, but let's see what's possible and what's out there and possible for this building. I think that is a feeling inside. We've, again, that 360 feedback I talked about. You're starting to hear it. The women's locker room's full, those types of things. So that is all I have for you, Mayor, Council.
Questions?
Thank you for the.
Thank you.
Okay, under 11 workshops, 11A, Westminster baseball field improvements.
Is it Westminster or is it Minster?
Westminster.
It's spelled funny.
Take a different, did I put an extra?
No,
I
I think it's right. It's just spelled that way.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I am here to talk to you about some proposed improvements on the Westminster field for the baseball fields. That was brought to staff by the Shakopee Youth Baseball Association. I'm going to go through what they are proposing. They have met with staff several times, and what we are looking for today is just some guidance from the council. Before they move into concept and planning phases too extensively, we want to make sure that that mayor and council are in support of such. So the Shakopee Youth Baseball Association approached city staff wanting to make some improvements to the ball fields to build excitement at the younger levels of baseball in Shakopee. This would allow them to host 9 under, 10 under, 11 under tournaments, as well as their in-house jamboree over at that field. Right now, they are seeing a small decline in youth baseball numbers. They don't believe it's substantial, but they are hoping that these improvements could potentially build some more excitement and start increasing participation again in the younger levels of youth baseball. So like I said, tonight we're just going to go through their improvements, what they are proposing. Pending discussion from mayor and council, we will come back with any significant projects. So this is just to get your support before they spend too much time moving forward with their ideas. So the first project that they are proposing is to move the current fence, which is at 240 feet, to 200 feet and decrease the height from 6 feet to 4 feet. So this is an overlay, kind of, very, nothing official, but what that would look like.
Would that be the yellow line?
Yes.
And that would be the new location?
Location, you can kind of see, I believe.
The black line behind the trees? Okay. Is there, it would have been beneficial if we could have had this slide presentation in our packet prior to this meeting.
I apologize about that, yes.
We get the idea.
Carry on.
Okay. So the next thing that they are proposing is to grass the infields and have irrigation on this infield. This is what would be proposed here. In talking with the board of the Baseball Association, they are saying we are one of the last cities that haven't gone to this model. They were at a field up in Maple Grove where those younger level of players really enjoyed that grass infield. So that's kind of what they're looking at here. If we were to move forward with this, we would propose some type of maintenance agreement similar to what we have with the Shakopee Youth Football Association and the scoreboards that they put out at their complex. The next improvement that they are performing is, or requesting, is to install field armor on the batter boxes. And Shane, the president of the Shakopee Youth Baseball Association, is here tonight. I believe these are to give a little bit more support and structure to a part of the field where it sees a lot of wear and tear, where you have people sliding in and all of that. So this just helps maintain that. I believe we do have this installed at some of the fields out at Tapa Park.
Is this under the sand?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was wondering how you dig in or if you
So
slide
this
in.
is just showing what they're actually putting in, and then dirt comes over and then sand.
This is where you stand to bat.
Correct, yes.
Can't dig too deep.
No risk of injury to the players? Any risk of injury to the
Up
players
to the
with that?
table, please.
Yeah. Please join us, yeah.
I'm not sure that mic was working yet, so you might have to speak up. Okay.
You can come stand by me too.
There you go.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not dressed up. I came right from baseball practice, so my apologies. But the field armor, the thing with the batter's box is probably the most difficult to maintain at the field as far, it just becomes a it just dig, right? So we do have these out at Tapa at, I think, 3 of the fields, 5, 6, and 7 out there already. A lot of success. It's just much easier to maintain.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. And then one thing I should, on the previous slide with irrigation, there is already irrigation out at Westminster. We would probably just have to add a couple heads just because there's grass more so in the infield. So
In the infield. Okay.
yeah.
So how do you keep people from hitting their heads while they're playing the game?
They're sunk.
They just go below
they go
the
down.
surface level. Yep, they go pretty deep.
All right, and then also looking at putting concrete in the dugouts, again, just a more stable surface long-term.
This is also a little bit of a maintenance thing as well. A lot of the runoff from the field, that becomes really difficult to maintain as well. We get a lot of wetness, everything like that in there. So just concrete in the dugouts would just make it so much more cleaner.
Except for the spit and the gum. And
Yeah, okay. Well, then you can sweep it out at least or something, right?
Okay.
Power wash.
Pretty self-explanatory. There's not really a whole lot of, well, there's no shelving really in the dugouts right now. So the players just put their bats, on the fence or whatever. So this would just make it look a little bit cleaner.
And then that's all we have. So myself and Shane are here to stand for any questions.
Can we go back to the first slide of the field that had the grass infield?
This
There you
one?
go. Yes, thank you. Mr. Lara?
So why this particular park? Why this field to make this type of investment in? I know we have, like you mentioned, Tapa. So yeah, why this particular field do you want to make this type of investment in?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think at Westminster there's 2 fields, right? So you have 1 and 2 over there. So we would be looking at doing this at both of those fields. And Tapa itself is, well, and these really are softball fields that we're playing baseball on, right? So, one of the things that we talked to the Lions about before we even thought about this is for years this was a a backup field for their big softball tournament that they have every year. And for years, they were at, 80, 90, 100 teams, and now they didn't have 60 this year. So we went to them to say this was a backup field for them, and according to those guys, it's been 10 years since they've used this field for that tournament. So they were all, and we just said, we want to make this more of a little bit of a baseball, not baseball only, because you could play softball there, but, grass and field, those types of things to get away from, playing softball there, and they were all for it. So that's a big piece of it. And I think just having a really young age that these kids could look forward to playing on a really nice field, I think really can help improve our culture. I think when we talked, like our in-house program is, kind of like your 6, 7, 8-year-olds. They're kind of playing all over town, right? They're at elementary fields. They're all over, and that's fine, right? They're still learning the game or whatever. But now we start and potentially going 9U, 10U, 11U are just playing games here, only games, and we maybe practice elsewhere. But this is the field they can look forward to. That first year of travel, they get to go play on a really, really nice field and be excited about it. And I think having like even our end of the year in-house jamboree that we have out at Tapa now, if we can move that to here, where this is the first time they ever get to play on this super nice field, and now they go into the following year, kind of playing their games there, I think it's just something that could be super exciting.
Sure. I have more follow-up questions. So no, tournaments are only at Tapa right now?
Correct, yeah.
So my other concern is if we're wanting to do more tournaments and such, the issue comes down to parking with all those cars. I'm familiar with this location. The parking lot's very small. You're competing with the park that's next to it as well. Is that something you guys put thought into? Would a shuttle that's provided to bring people, to encourage people to park at the high school, since the high school's right down the block? Yep. Are those things being considered as well? Because it is a residential area. Sure. And then it's off of, what is that, 17?
17, yeah.
I don't know how much parking is allowed on there, but I just, to go down Valley View and all those cars just line the road, you're having vision obstruction. So just things to think about is when we're, which is great, we want to bring people here to Shakopee for those things, but to consider what are the ramifications, like what are the, offside things to think about.
Well, I think you said the tournament won't be there,
Mr.
but,
Whiting?
I'm sorry. You said the Lions tournament won't be there, but other tournaments might be, is what I'm guessing you heard.
Yeah, because I think one of your slides, you guys mentioned you wanted to host other, more events.
Yeah. Yeah, so we host some games there at our annual Shakopee tournament, but we were thinking maybe we could add another tournament or two there potentially. Certainly something to think about, yeah. I think during the week we have games there now, and there's plenty of traffic, but there's plenty of parking. And even though it is a residential area, you're kind of parking in a residential spot and carrying equipment and all that, right? It's not ideal, but it's certainly, a shuttle is a great idea, yeah. So that is definitely something that we need to think about for sure. Yep. And even we thought too, staggering times a little bit differently. So the next team isn't showing up while that other game is still going on. Maybe it's a half hour, in between games so they can get out of there and the next team can come in, that sort of thing. But something that we've thought about, yeah, for sure.
I have one more thought that just popped to mind. So this is just field facilities. If you guys are wanting to do more tournaments and such there, have you guys thought about improving the other facilities that are there, like for concessions and whatnot?
Yeah, so really the shelter there right now, when we've hosted the Shakopee tournament, we basically bring in warmers and we bring in just basically picnic tables. So we've done hot dogs and burgers and stuff like that, and we can use that as kind of a concession stand. There's no refrigeration, that's the only problem, so there's, we just bring our own coolers. So yeah, if we were going to do that, we'd probably be looking at purchasing a cooler of some sort of, something like that. Yeah, for sure.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Whiting?
So you mentioned the 240-foot field is a softball field?
Correct.
Okay, so the 200-foot field would be more Little League or that style of field?
Yeah, so my son is 11, so I've been around now for travel for 9 and 10, and usually at the youth fields, 200's kind of a standard park. We've seen some at 190, but with 240, and this is more baseball talk, sorry, but a ball gets hit to right center, and if it goes to the fence, it's just a home run, right? And that's not really baseball, right?
It's got to go over the fence.
Yeah, so if you bring it to 200, now that's just a double, right? And that's more true baseball, we feel like. And hey, if somebody pops a home run, man, the kids would go crazy, right? I mean, we had a kid at 10 last year hit a home run over in Richfield, and the whole place went crazy, right? And that's excitement. That's fun for those kids. So even if we create some more home runs out of that, I think that could be even more enjoyable. So
is the grass on the infield more of or the lack of grass on the infield, the softball thing?
correct, yeah.
Okay, so-
Yep. Softball is just dirt, ag lime all the time. Yep.
Okay, do our other fields set up for baseball have grass on the infields?
Yes. So I think Kelsey mentioned, I would say over the last couple of years, I bet 70% of the fields we go to are grass. So we're definitely playing, on a softball field.
It's a different game.
It is. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Delaney? Okay, so my question is probably more for our Park and Rec staff director. The original intent of these fields, from a citywide perspective, what does this proposal do to that original intent? And to expand, is this change and the original intent okay because things are changing in the marketplace?
So I would say, I wasn't here when these fields were built, but they were built for softball. And nationwide in Parks and Rec and sports, we are seeing a decline in softball, a pretty significant one. I know Sherry, our recreation program manager, she's been with the city a little over 30 years, and she used to have, I don't want to throw numbers out because I'm going to forget wrong or remember wrong, but many softball teams. There was men's, women's, co-rec. Now we're just down to a few. We are definitely seeing a decline in softball. So to be able to take this field and give it a little bit of excitement for baseball, I don't believe that would harm the original intent, especially with that decline.
Okay, and then looking over the basic concepts that we have in front of us, what would some of your concerns and some things that you really like?
I really like the idea, like I said, with softball declining, I like the idea of putting a little love into it and getting the younger generation excited about playing baseball. My concerns would be similar to Councilmember Lara about the parking. We have talked, based on council's thoughts and guidance tonight about doing a neighborhood meeting, just to make sure that if they do move forward with this and it could increase parking, what is the neighborhood's concern? And, the shuttle is a great idea. I didn't think about that, but that would be, I would say, my biggest concern. And I think we could, flesh out what the neighbors are feeling by having a neighborhood meeting.
Okay, Mr. Whiting?
Would this be an opportunity to reconfigure these fields totally? Obvious a cost to that, but to add parking. You don't want to be parking on the outfield if you're going to hit those home runs.
Right.
But, hey, you just added 40 feet there.
Yeah, we had looked at that as a staff group, and I don't have the larger map, but we did identify an area that could potentially be used for parking. There would certainly be impact to the neighborhood at that point in time.
Okay.
And of course, there's always associated costs with that as well.
Sure. Councilor Contreras?
Picking up on that, what are we thinking? I know we're just brainstorming right now, but when it comes to the cost, is the association willing to, you talk to me, what are you thinking?
Yeah, we are not asking for any money, so we plan to self-fund the whole project.
All right, I think just.
I suppose we haven't looked into any parking costs or adding parking spaces, of course, at this point. But, if that would prohibit from happening, we would have to consider something along those lines. But there's a couple different associations in Minnesota that really want to help with projects like this. Metro Baseball being one, Minnesota Youth Athletic Services being another, have both told us that if we applied for a scholarship, we would get some funds. Of course, they're not going to promise me a dollar figure, but I think it's pretty substantial. I know Prior Lake did that and got close to $100,000 for their improvements that they did here in the last 2 years. So And I know that we are already raising funds with this in mind anyway, but we didn't want to get too far down the line without talking to you guys and kind of seeing if this is okay before we go any further.
It sounds like you're in conversation with some of the local clubs and potential there. I know we're working on the Miracle Field at the Lions, and this is only going to enhance baseball and, you know, that aspect of it. Have you looked at any numbers, or is this too preliminary?
As far as cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I would say we've only gotten one bid for the infield, and that's by far the biggest cost. It's about $35,000 per field. The fencing was pretty inexpensive. I would say overall it'd be about $60,000 per field, but about 65% of that is the infield and irrigation, and we've only gotten one quote. I think that can go down, or we're hoping. And we've raised just this year alone right around $35,000 that we have kind of allocated towards some of this if it does in fact kind of move forward.
And you'd want to move forward with 2 fields, not just one at a time.
Correct. Now, I do think that maybe doing it in phases might make some sense for us financially, meaning like maybe this fall we would do the fences, for example, you know, or do the fences in the dugout, and then maybe next fall we look at grassing the infield or something like that, just to try to, you know, divide out the cost a little bit.
Sure.
Councilor Contreras?
One more comment. I am very familiar too with that area.
Yeah.
And there's a volleyball section right there. And I think there's like another little piece. I don't know, it's just like opening ideas of parking.
10 cars in there.
I know.
I mean, there's
I'm
potential.
just-
There's
But yeah, there's
potential.
potential, that's what I'm trying to say, there is. So, yeah, because my only issue is like when I drive to get to, what is that, 17th? All the cars, and then you're just like, I mean, as a mom, I'm like, oh God, no kids coming out of, you know, behind of a car, you know, I mean, they don't know which they're going. So you're just driving down, and it's a curve, and you're like, I can't see, hope there's no kids, and you know, somebody trying to cross, and there's cars on both sides, and it's like, ugh. So parking off the street would be my biggest thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it, not that I don't agree with you, I do, but there are games there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday right now.
Oh, I know.
So when I'm talking about maybe adding a tournament, we're talking maybe one weekend,
Okay.
you know, maybe 2 at best. We're not talking every weekend all summer long. It's just maybe the potential to host a tournament. But I think even if we didn't do that, this would just enhance the programs we already have, make it a better experience for the teams that are already playing there.
Right.
But I think a tournament is just maybe a way to create some more excitement, bring more people to town, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like the consensus of council is to have that neighborhood meeting, get that feedback, see what we can do with parking. You'd have to work with staff on that. And there's possibility that since we as a community benefit from getting some of them cars that Councilor Contreras is talking about, them conflicts from what's currently happening without any improvements, if there's an opportunity for parking, we might potentially participate in that part of it.
Something.
Mr. Reynolds, did you have a comment?
I was just going to remind that if we work on parking, it will have costs associated with it, and we would need to
Budget.
understand that, and
We don't even know if it's possible, so,
Right.
at this point.
Park improvement.
All right, do you need anything more specific from us at this point?
I don't believe so. Thank you very much.
Thank
Well,
you.
good luck on your project.
Item 11B, long-term financial plan.
costs.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. So tonight we're having a discussion on the long-term financial plan. This is the 5th year that we've put together this plan, so already been 5 years. Just a quick background. So the reason why we ended up putting this together in the first place, it was a strategic priority, as council directed strategic priority. There is no template that exists for a long-term financial plan. You know, there's set guidelines for our annual audit report, budget book. There's nothing for a long-term financial plan, so we have some flexibility on what we put together within this plan. And then the third thing I wanted to mention, that as we have issued bonds in the past, it is one of the criteria that is part of the bond rating agency, so we've also kind of checked that off our to-do list as well. The kind of the chart at the bottom of this kind of illustrates how I kind of view this. It really is looking at things from a long-term perspective before you get into the operating budget and the kind of the year-to-year decision-making. So it's nice to look at things from more of a longer-term perspective before you look into kind of the one-year short-term decision-making. The plan that's put together includes a couple of different areas. One would be trend analysis, so looking back at where we've been in the past 10 years, kind of tells you the picture of where we might be going. And then also a 10-year projection for the general fund that kind of sets some realistic expectations of what you can expect when any given year when preparing that annual budget. The last 3 years, we've also incorporated this with the capital improvement plan, so we've published it within the CIP. So I saw this infographic another city was using, and we kind of modified it for our purposes, so a much cleaner, prettier version of that. But this illustrates that city council's role is to, and city staff role is to have high-quality city services as the foundation for a healthy and growing community, and shows kind of where external forces and government action might intervene. Those high-quality services drive population growth as more people and businesses want to be part of our community. Population growth drives the growth in real estate values, whether that be new development or rising demand for existing inventory. That growth in value ensures that there is sustainable tax revenue, which pays for inflation-based costs of services in our best-of-class city services with minimal impact on the property tax rate. So sort of the cycle of city government. So the first few charts here, I'll kind of go through kind of a series of charts. I won't spend a whole lot of time on any one of them, but we have them split out by property type, but on two different charts just because it's more of a visual thing. If you have, you know, a big set of data on one of them and then smaller amounts, it's too hard to read unless it's split on two graphs. No other reason besides just being able to visually be able to see them. This chart is based on the number of parcels. The chart shows the property types by parcel since 2016. Interesting to see commercial has stayed relatively flat over that period, where conversely apartment, industrial, and tax-exempt parcels have grown. Ag parcels tend to jump from year to year. It's not necessarily the case that you're losing a bunch of parcels or not, but since it is parcel data, it's reflective of the ag parcels often being split into smaller parcels, either for residential or a different property type. So this is the same chart as the previous slide, but it's only residential in total. Residential parcels have increased 1,610, and total parcels have increased 1,825 over that 10-year period. We have a total of 15,690 parcels for payable year 2025. Makes sense as we've seen a lot of the larger ag parcels become multiple residential parcels. So in the packet, I included charts on taxable market value, but on these slides, I just have tax capacity slides for this presentation. Pretty much gets at the same thing, accounting for the value that's applicable to the property tax levy. We've seen significant growth in tax capacity over the past 10 years. Apartment from 1.8 million to 6.3 million, commercial from 5.2 million to 8.4 million, and then industrial from 6.6 million to 22.6 million. So for apartment and industrial, they're pretty close to about 250% increases over that past 10 years.
Do we expect the commercial decline trend to continue?
I don't necessarily know if it'll decline, but I would anticipate it would stay relatively flat. I mean, I think most of the growth that we've been seeing has been kind of an industrial on the residential side, but you still see things like the Canterbury development where you're seeing commercial go up. But I think that's probably the general trend in most cities is there's not a lot of, you know, shopping centers going up.
Right, but the existing commercial that we have is not increasing in valuation. Is that?
So sorry, I was on the right side. I mean, it has increased, just not to the pace that the other ones have increased. I think the one thing that's leading the apartment and the industrial side is there's also a lot of new growth in those areas.
Well, this shows that commercial declined from 24 to 25.
Yeah, so these would be assessed values. So based on the assessor's value, yes, I guess that would be an accurate statement. Sorry, I was looking at more of the 10-year trend versus just the past year when you asked that question. I do actually have a slide. So I did get the assessed values for payable 2026. I've actually added a slide in that presentation so that I'll be able to answer that question, I guess, when we get to that slide. And then again, so same type of information, only again is residential in total. So residential, we've seen an increase from 26 million to 50 million, and in total about 40.7 million to 88 million. So tax capacity has more than doubled over that past decade. Then this chart shows the Shakopee's fiscal disparities net contribution in terms of tax capacity. So this is the net amount, what the city contributes to what it receives. The payable 2025 data hasn't been updated statewide, but in 2024, we were the 9th largest contributor to the program. So I'd anticipate that jumping a couple of spots once I am able to pull the other information. We are the only city in Scott County that's a net contributor. So Belle Plaine, Credit River, Jordan, Prior Lake, Savage, they're all recipients of fiscal disparity dollars. So with our growing industrial and commercial tax base, mostly industrial, it's gone from 2.4 million in tax capacity to 9.4 million in 2025. So to put that in context, as far as percentage of our tax capacity, it's about 8.6% of our tax capacity that's going into the program.
We'll not complain this year. We'll just move on.
Yeah,
We've heard it all.
I know you've seen the slide.
There are certain things that we are never going to be able to solve.
Right.
Well, let's not say that.
At many different levels of government, and I'll leave it at that.
Just change the line. Instead of death and taxes, it'd be death and fiscal disparities.
So on this slide, I'm showing net tax capacity captured by the TIF districts in the city. 10 years ago, it was about 540,000. In 2025, it's about 4.2 million. So I think the slide really shows that we've been successful in increasing tax capacity through our tax increment districts. Keep in mind, of course, these developments would not have occurred but for the use of TIF. So we have generated about 4.2 million of additional tax capacity that in time will be added to the city's tax capacity. On this chart, the years listed are the year they're required to be decertified or have decertified. For example, Amazon, which is kind of the copper color there, was decertified at the end of 2023. So again, you're not seeing anything on this chart for 2024 as that's now been decertified.
Quick question. Can you remind us what the enclave is?
So there's the old City Hall site.
Yeah.
So that's the enclave apartment there. Yep.
Was Canterbury a 20-year, and wasn't that started at 15?
So Canterbury, I think that runs through 2039. So I believe that was a 25-year redevelopment district.
Okay, this is 45.
2045, thank you. Yep.
But if it started in 2015, 2016.
Yeah, so I would have think the first time it was certified would have been, I mean, redevelopment districts are 25 years, correct? So that would have been 2020 would have been the year that
2020, yeah.
I guess it would be 2019 because you would have that final year where you decertify, but.
Okay.
Yep. Then levy components over the past 10 years. So back in 2016, 17.6 million, increasing to about 27.2 million this year. And then this slide kind of has a lot of information, but that shows the city levy by dollar amount. I should say the changes in city levy by dollar amount, percentage, and then the corresponding impact on the city tax rate. So over the past years, if you wanted to have an average, it was about 999,000 or a 4.7% increase in property taxes per year on average. However, we have seen our tax rate drop significantly since 2015. It was 37.9%, and it's 27.8% for taxes payable in this year, 2025. Population chart. So the 2020 number is the census number. That was 43,698. We've used Met Council estimates for the other kind of the other numbers there. So over the past decade, we've seen population increase by about 7,300 or 18.5%. For full-time employees, so kind of the final slide here, I believe it's the final slide on the trends. So public safety, which would be police, fire, and building inspection, and park and recreation, which would include parks, community center, ice arena. Those are the kind of the areas where we've seen the full-time staff added over the past decade. So I've added some bonus slides that weren't part of the long-term financial plan, but I think it kind of helps with this discussion. So this is, these are numbers as of April 25, so these would be assessed values, which would impact the property taxes payable next year. So these will be the numbers that we'll be using for this year's budget, or developing next year's budget, I guess. So for taxes payable in 2026, those preliminary assessed numbers, we're seeing a taxable market value increase of $444 million, or 5.4%. About 50%, 51% of the value increase is coming from new construction, so that's pretty significant. Total taxable value of residential is increasing by about 5.1%, apartment 12.1%, and commercial 3.9%. So commercial's increasing but staying relatively flat, to kind of answer your question from earlier. Industrial 4%, and then at this point I don't have fiscal disparity numbers, so haven't been able to run every calculation possible yet, but that's kind of where we're at with preliminary numbers. And the median value home for taxes payable 2026 is $361,300, so that's about a 3% increase from where we were at last year. So good numbers kind of leading into our future budget discussion. Next couple of slides I took from last year's audit presentation, but I thought they'd be helpful to include here. We'll obviously see updated slides when the auditors do the presentation in early June.
We don't have these, do we?
What's that?
We don't have this one, do we?
I put it in with the, you have the copy of the presentation, but this wouldn't be part of
Here it is.
the plan.
265.
So every once in a while I get questions on debt, so I wanted to just kind of throw that in there. We are favorable in comparison to both our statewide city comparisons and also within the county for both debt per capita and then also our debt service expenditures as part of our total expenditures. And then taxes-wise, again, favorable when looking at kind of tax rates and taxes per capita with our peers in Scott County, as well as our cities across the state. I should mention that at least for taxes per capita, that also includes tax increment and lodging taxes. It's not just necessarily property taxes only. This slide, if you're looking at this in your packet, I had to correct what I had highlighted there. This is more accurate than what's in your packet. But Shakopee does continue to be one of the lowest tax communities in the metro area. There are 32 cities in the metro with population between 25,000 and 100,000. This chart is based on 2024, so I could use the League of Minnesota Cities property tax calculator, so a year old, but we are the fourth lowest based on that data. And then our final comparable slide, which we typically incorporate as part of our budget presentations. I've updated this for this year, so I figured I'd share that with you too. So this is looking at 2025 annual cost of services for our property taxes, and then basically what we provide is sewer and stormwater on a $300,000 home. So Shakopee continues to be at the lowest of those comparison cities. We're at about $1,094, which is actually a $2 decrease from last year. This is mainly a result of the market value exclusion, so it actually took some of that property tax away from a $300,000 home. And we've also had pretty minimal impacts on sewer, storm, and tax rates over the past year. So the next few slides, I'll kind of get into the general fund projections. Just wanted to provide a few reference points, looking back at the previous 10 years again. On average, over the previous 10 years, we've seen our tax capacity grow by 9.1%. Total amount we levy as a city, which would include operations, debt service, EDA, and then our capital projects, would be an average of 4.6%. Part of that being debt service for the community center and the ice arena. The levy for the general fund, which is funding operations, only increased by 2.6%. For revenues, couldn't really do a comparison like I could do with some of the expenditures because they jump around quite a bit. In any given year, we might have some grant that kind of skews the data, so couldn't really put revenues on here and have a very good reference point, I guess, more or less. But for expenses, the four functional areas: general government, about a 5.1% increase; public safety, 5.5%; public works, 5.7%; and park and rec, 9.1%. And then looking back at those increases, it's primarily driven by staffing needs, whether it's staffing changes or increase in staffing costs. So for the trend, I shouldn't say the trend, for the general fund projections, here's kind of the information I used. I used the 2025 budget and then the 2025 payable numbers for market value information. For the expense side, I've assumed that each of those functional areas have increased by 3% per year, with the exception of public safety, which is more personnel driven. So I did an extra 0.5% for that. On the revenue side, for licenses and permits, intergovernmental revenue, charges for services, I used a 3% annual increase. And then for miscellaneous, I used the 2% increase, assuming that most of that would be our cash balance increasing over time would drive a little bit more of additional interest earnings. And then for taxes, I just plugged that number based on those previous assumptions and what it would take to maintain a fund balance target within the general fund. So here's what that looks 10 years out. I know you probably can't read that, but it's in your packet as well. A lot easier to look on a computer screen and be able to zoom in and look at the numbers, but I'll just kind of walk through it anyways. Below the projected figures, there are lines for the ending fund balance in comparison to that 50% target, the annual change in total revenue and expenditure by percentage, the impacts on the levy. Again, we plugged 4% as the needed amount based on the other assumptions used. For those impacts, we used the 2025 payable year as the base for taxable market value and tax capacity, increased that by 4% per year. And then the median value home we increased by 3% per year. Interesting to see that under the scenario of increasing the levy by 4%, if the tax capacity continues to grow, we'd still see a relatively minimal impact on the tax rate over the 10 years. Also added some projections for the number of households and population based on Met Council data. And then showing the taxes per capita as well. The annual increased numbers are kind of below what we've seen, if you remember that reference point chart. But I think they're somewhat reasonable. I would say if we were to continue to see increases in licenses and permits, intergovernmental and charges for services that exceed 3%, you're likely going to see corresponding increases on the expenditure side too, to kind of support those revenues. So in other words, not all the expenses go hand in hand with just property tax revenue that's funding them. And then generally speaking, more of this whole kind of 10-year projection, more of a general illustration of, or, going through the thought process of, okay, if these assumptions seem reasonable, you would basically anticipate at least a 4% average annual levy increase to support, operations over a 10-year period. So that's kind of the number, the starting point you're kind of looking at once we get into the operating budget. Hopefully I did my best to explain that. It's sometimes nice to just kind of get an idea of where we've been, where we're at, looking at through some of these charts. So I think that's about it. I can open up if there's any questions or discussion.
You must have done an outstanding job. Nobody has any questions.
And just to include a bunch of numbers and charts, and it seems to minimize the questions.
You do it quick,
Mr. Mayor,
get it over with.
Yeah.
I'd like to make one comment. I mean, we're a data-driven organization, and by any metric, by any financial metric, we are knocking it out of the park. And I say that because it's not by accident. The staff and department heads and the finance department all are very focused on making sure that we can deliver the best product at the best price for our residents. And we are. We're killing it. So it's okay to recognize that, if you will.
Definitely. Sometimes we see those charts too many times. We know we're at that low end of our comparables, and but we don't recognize appreciate the work as much as or show our appreciation as much as we should. So thank you for that.
I think just generally speaking, and you'll get the same comments when the auditors come and present in June, we're a pretty strong financial community, and we've got things working pretty well and pretty efficiently, and I think as Bill says, we're all pretty proud of that.
We took a lot of steps early on, years back, to create some internal funds that have shown to be very beneficial for the spikes in the general levy, whether it's a fire truck, plow truck, cop car, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the first real step to put us in the position that we are today. And we've done multiple over the decade I've been here as well. But that clearly, and I actually testified on Representative Tapke's bill where he was trying to get the legislature to agree that this was a good idea and that if you receive state money, you should probably have a plan to pay it back, much like what we do. And unfortunately, it didn't get the reception, which I think if people would have just said, well, let's take a step back and actually look what this does, because it really is probably the first brick or the cornerstone for our financial shape today.
Yeah, I think to say to pay it back might be misconcepted by people, but
Yeah,
what you're saying is to have a fund. So let's say, the state gives you money for a widget thing and you build that widget thing and 30 years later you need to rebuild it, that you, whoever received the state money, is putting the money aside for that purpose.
Yeah, as opposed to going back to the state and say, hey, we need a new widget.
Right.
Like, well, we just bought your last widget.
Right. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of unknowns at the moment that we can't control, but we're trying to minimize any damage. Knock on wood. There we go. Anything else? Any questions? No? Thank you, Nate. Appreciate your presentation. So that takes us to item 12, liaison reports.
I can start.
Mr. Lara?
So, school district, if you're not aware, and this also goes to the general public, they are conducting a community survey. And if you have not taken it yet, the gist of the survey is basically asking you to rate your opinions, and they want it from whether you have children in the school district or not. They want it from business owners, they want it from residents, they want it from parents. And one of the questions is, due to declining enrollment, they're going to have a levy coming due that was used for building. And that was, I believe, just over $5 million. One of the questions in that survey will be, how in favor would you be if it was to be voted on to use $4 million of that dollars once that's over, to use that for shortfall in their budget for like staffing, I believe was one of the uses for it. So that once the survey's over, all those results will be presented to the school board in June. So it'll be really interesting to hear how that turned out. But I guess
so it's a levy renewal.
But a levy renewal, but the funds would not be used for the building. It would be used for teachers.
Operations.
Yeah, operations.
Okay.
So it's and then the survey asked other questions too. So I've already taken it. And the great thing too about it is the feedback and interaction that you do with it is open for as long as the survey is open, I believe through the end of the month. So what I put in there now, I can go back and see what other people have added to it since I've taken it. So it's not a one and done, it's a constant interactive survey too. So you can go to, they have a link on Facebook, but for those that don't have that, you can go to the public schools website, and it's a window that pops up right away. It's have you taken the survey yet? And it lets you get into it right there.
So it was a $7 to $9 million shortfall.
It's a what?
$7 to $9 million shortfall, and is that all declining student per pupil cost coming from the state?
They said inflation and decreased in birth rate, so the decline in enrollment.
Well, if they got a decline in enrollment, do they need less classrooms and less teachers, or do they want to downsize the classroom sizes?
I don't know the specifics on that.
Anything
But
else?
I would be curious to see, like, what would, and it does ask, like, some of the questions ask you, like, how satisfied are you with class sizes? How satisfied are you with overall administration? How, it gets fairly detailed, so, and it gives you an opportunity to give open-ended questions or answers, so definitely everybody in the community is recommended to take it.
Excellent. Find the link on Facebook.
Or you can go to the public schools website, and it's the first thing that pops up on there for you.
Very good. Any other reports?
That's it. Nope.
Thank you. Councilor Contreras?
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't have an actual liaison, but I do have places I attended, invitations I attended to. So on the 23rd, I attended the State of the State, where State Rep Brad Tapke invited me to go to, and I attended that. On the 26th, I did Cleanup Day, great turnout. On the 3rd, I was also invited by our police officers to attend the NLPOA Cinco de Mayo parade in St. Paul. That was pretty cool. And then in the afternoon, I went over to the food trucks that we had over at Murphy's Landing. And then yesterday, I attended the groundbreaking of Prairie Point.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Whiting?
Yes, MVTA met. We talked about our Burnsville Bus Garage modernization project, which is multi-phase, and actually the whole project over many years is going to end up being $15 million worth of upgrades to that building down there. We had a ridership report. Our fixed routes were up 5.2% over Q1 of 2024. 5.3% increase in downtown Minneapolis routes, and 11.2% decrease to downtown St. Paul. Now, that might change when the governor says all state employees have to be back to work at least 50% of the time in person after June 1st, I think it is, but still some, we'll see about St. Paul. Locally, fixed routes are down 5.9%, but Connect, which is that on-demand service we recently got in Shakopee, is up 52.89%, so growing quite a bit. And I want to acknowledge MVTA got a certificate of recognition from Southwest Metro Intermediate Schools right here in Shakopee for working with them to coordinate on transit options for some teachers that they brought in. So they connected housing with transit so that they can get teachers to work. So it was a good connection for our friends in Shakopee. But that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Delaney?
Okay, 169 Coalition. I got a chance to attend the Minnesota Infrastructure Legislative Conference. A lot of good information. One of the takeaways was what works, what doesn't work on how to approach legislators. Really some good ideas about off-cycle engagement, focus on the what and then the how, involve the chamber, identifying funding opportunities, and explain why it's important, but also get the community involved to help make those changes, or help drive those changes. We also got a legislative update. Jordan groundbreaking was moved till later in the summer, so we didn't get a chance to attend that. As far as SPU, they also had a financial audit. They passed, so good news there.
Lights staying on tonight, right?
Lights are staying on, so that was good news. We're also, as far as the AMI, there are 34,000 installations. Most of them will complete this summer. They're going to start door knocking later in the summer to try to get the last few residents connected. So you'll see that pop up here shortly. Let's see. Also, council members will start getting the wonderful packet. So please review if you got questions.
Yep.
Yeah. So more homework of that. And let's see. As far as other activities, Officer Evan swearing in. Welcome to Shakopee. We attended that. National Day of Prayer was last week. This year I attended Friendship Church at Prior Lake. Pastor Art Hansen, the care pastor, was in Shakopee last year, Prior Lake this year. Legislators were not able to make it as far as Senator Pratt and Representative Bakeberg. Just because of sessions, they couldn't make it. Of course, cleanup day, that's always fun. Getting feedback from the residents. It's a great program and keep doing it. That's everything. Thank you.
A question.
Very good. Go ahead.
I wonder, I got an invitation to the amphitheater through the 169 Coalition. I wonder how the EDA didn't get in there before the 169 Coalition. So how did that work?
It's all who you know, that's the.
I guess.
Just got to ask.
Did go through one tour out there earlier in its construction. Were you not there?
I was at one at the groundbreaking, but that was it.
Well, no, we went
No, we
through
went on
one.
the bus tour.
Yeah, we went on the bus.
The
tour.
last one we did,
Yeah, I
stopped
think I
there.
was there, but there wasn't
Yeah.
a lot to see at that.
Yeah. Well, you can compare that to what it is now if you're interested and
I did
see
sign
the
up.
progress.
Yep, I signed up for that.
Nice.
Let's see, mine was, I attended the cleanup day. The 30th was active PT Anytime Fitness up at the West End Mall. They've got a new inside the Anytime Fitness service that they're physical therapy basically through the mail. They're connected with the mail, so that's going to be a good service for all the active things that we have going on outside in Shakopee. Staff and I met with Senator Pratt and some other mayors and administrators about some current bills related to homeowners associations. What else did I do? The Beacon groundbreaking, Councilor Contreras and I attended that. This morning I attended the Chamber's Future Leaders. I was a speaker forum at the Chamber's Future Leaders this morning at the Brew Hall. Had a good cup of coffee too while I was there. Good conversations. I think that's all I have at this point. Commend the county on your newsletter that you sent out. It was a great article about 169. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under other business, I guess Bill Egan is going to give us a rundown on some issues going on and what he's got coming up. Public Works.
Public Works, Mayor and Council, I just have 3 quick items for you. First of all was our cleanup day, you mentioned that. We had a good event. Most of the line was done in a couple hours. The event was 4 hours, but we had 320 vehicles, so I know a lot of you helped, so thank you for your help on that.
Is that more or less average?
It's good average.
Okay.
Yep. Second thing, May 18th to the 24th is APWA National Public Works Week. So just wanted to get that out there. If you see some of our staff out there, give them a good wave or say hi to them and thank them. And then lastly, speaking of staff, in 1979, we had one of our staff members start as a seasonal. He worked for 6 years as a seasonal. And May 8th of 1985, he was hired as a maintenance worker full-time 40 years ago. He's still going. I don't hear of any plans of retirement, but he's been with us for 46 years. We're proud of his dedication, his knowledge, and his hard work ethic. He's first one there every day, pretty much. He's the longest standing city employee that we have right now. And we did a short article in the Shakopee Snapshot that's coming up soon. So take a look at that and give it a read. And if you see him, thank him. He's
outstanding.
Well, if you see him, I think I can speak for all of us, but thank him for, on behalf of the council, for his service and many more years.
Yes. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Public Works guys do a great job. We really appreciate everything you guys do. Unseen and unsung heroes. 12A, City Bill List. Any questions?
One more, no, we're not on other business yet.
No questions on the
No
city bill
questions.
list.
Other business? Mr.
I think staff should take a look at the council chamber's communication and public address systems and see what we can do. Is that on the budget? I think I've seen that. We've paid for something a few times.
I want to get a gallon of gas and pour it on the whole thing.
How much is gas? Let's put that in the budget.
It's down a little bit, so.
If we could look at something for a future budget item to make sure that people are hearing us and all this work.
And that the audience microphone works?
That would be nice, yeah.
Yep. I hear you.
Anything else? All right.
Mayor,
Mr. Lara?
real quick. So I did, one thing I forgot to mention, I did attend the County Road 17 project open house.
As did I.
And I just have to, my frustration is that the general consensus and perception is reality, that everything was just falling on deaf ears, and that it's just there was no consideration in terms of what we suggested. There was no, what the residents, I've spoken to one constituent who just does not feel heard, and it's just very frustrating and very disappointing. So that's all I want to say on that.
Well, we saw the concept. They gathered information. We haven't seen what the results of that meeting were, what changes might be made. So I think might be just a little bit premature to figure out where we're at. So we'll have to wait and see.
Nothing's been done yet, so hopefully.
We'll have to see what the Scott County Engineering Department comes out with based on the discussions that they had at their open house. And until we see that.
This board spoke with one voice, and I felt that it was on deaf ears, too.
Well, obviously, we've got concerns with the neighborhoods out there, but the county is looking at it from a different standpoint. You know, if we were the county.
Looking at the SMSE properties around it, that's the standpoint.
I get what they're looking at.
Let's not be attacking other entities. Let's recognize the basics.
It's accountability.
That if we were Scott County and we wanted to build a road to move mass amounts of traffic with little interruptions, that would be our policy, and we would try to achieve that.
Undiminished property values.
We're not them. We are a local unit, and we like to have access to our properties.
I call it as I see
So
it.
the conflict is different levels of government. And if we really wanted to talk about conflicts, we could throw the state and the federal government into the conversation too, because we have many more conflicts with them two entities right now than we do with anybody else.
Yep.
So relationships with state, county, and federal are important. Even when we disagree, we have to try to work within the lanes that we're given and try to be respectful when we don't agree. That's part of our decorum policy. So, but I hear you. You know, it's never nice when people are faced with things that interrupt their daily driving and their lives. So.
I just wanted the constituents to know that we tried. So that's it.
It's just not our jurisdiction. I mean, we can, you know, we can try to find solutions. We're doing that. I think the residents are doing that. I think Scott County is doing that. So let's see where all this information goes before we say we couldn't get nothing accomplished. We don't know that yet. Okay? All right. Anything else?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to June 2025, 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Yeah, let's go to May 20th instead.
Oh, May 20th.
So why don't you just withdraw your motion and
I'll
your
withdraw
second.
my motion, and I'll make a new motion to adjourn to May 20th, 2025 at 7 p.m.
There you go. Second? Mr. Delaney seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Envelope. Oh.